Ho, ho, ho. It's me again, back with another chapter of Murder Bytes. I don't know if you can hear the dulcet tones of dogs chewing on bones in the background, but I decided to leave the door open and see what happens. So either this video will go off without a hitch, or it will be hitched to dogs being naughty. Anyway, cheers, Grinches. So when we last left Peri, she had been chasing Dev around the Fullerton train station, and they got stopped by two police officers, one of whom is a very nervous young type, and one of them whom is a very veteran of the force. You can tell he's kind of got his act together, and they have captured Dev, and they've captured Peri, much to her surprise. So they believe that she was possibly aiding and abetting her brother, which if you were a sibling and your sibling was in trouble, I think that would be a reasonable assumption for the police, is that you're trying to help them escape and not trying to help them turn themselves in. So let's tune into chapter 7, shall we? All right, here we go. Chapter 7. The police car smelled like old socks and sour milk, overlaid with cherry-scented disinfectant. They'd put Dev in a separate car, so Peri sat alone in the back seat, hands uncomfortably clasped behind her back, seatbelt rubbing across her collarbone. She looked at the back of the young officer's head. His hair was cut short, leaving his pale neck dotted with angry red bumps. The older officer drove, wearing the same unreadable expression that Skip often did. How did he keep his cool around his fly-off-the-handle associate? Did the department pair them so the more experienced man could desensitize the rookie? Doogie Howser, Fullerton PD, she thought. Then, that's not nice. He's a perfectly fine policeman, doing his job. It's your fault for letting your brother slip away the first time. She wiggled her fingers to keep them from growing numb and sat as far back as she could manage. The police station was less than a mile away. She could make it. In the meantime, how would she explain her presence at the train station? It was simple enough in her head. She wanted to find her brother and bring him to the police. The location was a lucky guess based on their history. Still, she didn't exactly have proof that she and Dev weren't planning his getaway together. It would depend upon him vouching for her, their stories remaining consistent, and Skip verifying it all. I hope we can convince the cops. Orange is not my color. Officer Doogie cranked his neck around and addressed her. So, breaking and entering. When was this? She glared at him. Pretty day, isn't it? That's not what I asked. That's all I'm answering. Officer Doogie turned back around. She could see the angry flush blossoming on his ears. At the station, Peri searched in vain for a friendly face while being led toward the interview room. Is Detective Berkowitz around? How do you know the detective? Officer Doogie held a door open for her, and she walked to the table in the middle of the small space. Been arrested before, eh? Did you not run my license? Bowing slightly, she held her hands away, hoping to be uncuffed. I'm a PI. I worked with the detective on a case. He freed her and motioned to the chair. We'll see about that. By the way, I didn't get your name. Officer Darden. And your partner? He frowned. What does that matter? It doesn't. Just wanted to think of you as a team. Starsky and Hutch and all that. Starsky and who? Peri sat, head in hands. Never mind, Officer Darden. Thanks for the lift to the station. Tell your partner I said he's a good driver. Real careful. Darden slammed the door on his way out. Wow, he needs a sense of humor. She looked around the room. Nothing but a table, 2 chairs, and a 2-way mirror. Everything was beige. It made her feel beige. Bland, lifeless. Her shoulders slumped forward, elbows shoving against the wooden tabletop. The therapist had suggested meditation for stress, always wanting her to find her happy place. Peri still wasn't convinced, but she closed her eyes, trying not to smirk, and let her mind wander. Paris. She visualized that afternoon in the Jardin des Tuileries with a glass of wine and a plate of crepes. It was a beautiful day, and the sun warmed her face. It was all BS before shooting. Now she couldn't find the happiness or sadness in anything, just irritation, which ran through her bloodstream. She wanted to punch the beige wall, but settled for deep breathing. Peri, it's good to see you. Detective Berkowitz put a cup of coffee in front of her and sat down, holding a manila folder. Although these aren't the best of circumstances. What's going on? Mistaken identity, she said, attempting the Reader's Digest condensed version. Well, maybe more like wrong place, wrong time. Tell me what happened. He put the folder on the table. Her tale expanded to the unabridged version, as she recounted everything that had happened since Dev's morning call. When she got to the part where Officer Darden's gun was pointed at her, tears fought to escape from her eyes. She rubbed her forehead with her knuckles, with enough pressure to distract herself. Has your brother ever had violent tendencies? Not when we were kids, most of the time. She shrugged. Look, the truth is, I have no idea who my brother is now. The detective nodded and looked through the folder. Fair enough. Since the murder happened in Placentia, we've turned him over to Detective Logan and the PPD. As far as your role in this, your brother swears you're not involved. He held up a paper. So does a Mr. Benny Needles and Detective Skip Carlton. I'd say you're in the clear. Thank you, Detective. Can I go now? I assume you plan on helping your brother get out of trouble. Yes. Well, as I told Dev, Skip and I will look into the evidence and make sure he's not just the most likely suspect. You know me, Detective. I won't try to get him out of trouble if he really did it. The detective smiled and handed her the folder. That makes me feel better about giving you this. Seems that we have a little background on the murdered woman, Tressa Velasco. She was under investigation. We've sent this on to Logan, but I thought you'd appreciate a copy. Investigation for what? We're not sure. The FBI asked us to put some intel together. They were coming in next week to brief us on what they're investigating and what other assistance we might lend. He nodded toward the folder. We've got a call in to let them know of Velasco's death. I can't promise to keep you in the loop, but I'll probably be giving the PPD more info. I'm sure you've still got your sources. Detective, you're a prince. Peri took the folder and stood. Now, how do I get a ride back to my car? I have a driver waiting for you. He walked her out of the room and down the hall to the desk captain, where a tall, handsome man leaned on a cane. Detective Carlton, perhaps you can give this woman a lift? Peri put her arms around Skip and looked over at Berkowitz. She held up the folder. Thank you, Detective. I do appreciate this. All right, so we've got some clues now. We know who the murdered woman is. And we know that the FBI was interested in her, and the Fullerton PD was doing some kind of ground level basic investigation. So who is Tressa Velasco, and what does the FBI find so fascinating about her? Good thing Peri's off the hook, because now she can find out. Talk to you later.